piece of real estate. Now, who would ever think that on this quiet neighborhood block, in this serene-looking house, there lives an army of uglies that rivals the Addams family. And Rich fits right in. Actually, Rich has devoted 39 years and a lot of hard-earned cash to assembling one of the largest horror movie artifacts collections in the world.
When I was a kid, I was always fascinated by horror movies because I thought they were a lot of fun, but it wasn't until I started actually working on the Universal lot in a show called Leave It to Beaver that I really started to put together a collection of stuff because Jerry Mathers and I were like these big fans of horror films, and our makeup man was a guy named Bob Don who did a lot of the horror film makeups, and he would take us to the lab, to the makeup lab, and we couldn't believe the stuff they were throwing out. So I started to say, hey, you know, you threw this stuff in the trash, can I take it? And little by little I started collecting more, and then I kind of got into that and it became like a hobby of mine. It was great because, you know, Boris Karloff was like a hero to us, and here he was on the next stage doing this TV show called Thriller. And we would go and kind of like spy on him and watch from behind the corners and stuff, and just seeing him was really cool.
Another screams will soon be heard. Whose? Perhaps yours.
And then, of course, Jerry knew Alfred Hitchcock pretty well because Jerry had made a film called The Trouble with Harry, and Hitchcock would come by and say hello to Jerry, and even in those days we knew how influential he had been to this type of genre. So it was great. It was a great time to be there. It was long before a Universal tour, so we kind of had the lot to ourselves, and as kids it was a huge playground. You know, the thing that was really fun is when we were doing Leave It to Beaver, I made really good friends with this guy named Ricky Conley, who was the son of the executive producer of Leave It to Beaver, Joe Conley. And Ricky and I were huge monster fans, so we were always saying to him, hey, you know, you ought to make a monster movie, Mr. Conley, why don't you do that? So he took our advice, because we were kids and all of our friends were crazy about monsters, except he didn't make a monster movie. He decided to make a monster TV series, which ended up being The Munsters, starring this guy here. And I always thought that Ricky and I had something to do with kind of the creation of the Munsters, because I think Mr. Conley was really influenced by all the kids that liked that kind of stuff. I was the kind of goof that ran out every month and bought Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, and I even sent them my picture, and they ran it, which made me like this huge hero around my school. Years later, I met a guy who was just as crazy as I was about monsters when he was a kid. Turns out together we'd throw the biggest and scariest Halloween party in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Hugh Hefner. I met Hugh Hefner in 1983 when I was producing a show for the Motion Picture Hospital called King Kong's 50th Anniversary. It was kind of a tribute to the movie. And we needed a benefactor and some people that would come in as celebrities and help finance it. And we contacted Hugh Hefner, and he was very, very charitable and willing to do it. And he was also a huge fan of the movie.
It was one of the, you know, the early classic spectacles, and I don't know, it just wears very well. It's a film that's very enjoyable.
So that's the first time I ever met him, and then I got to know him, and I began to realize we had this kind of common interest, which was horror movies and science fiction and things like that. And that relationship kind of grew over the years and turned into what is now basically the Playboy Halloween party. If there's anything else you see in the house or something, let us know, right? Because we're just tweaking everything as we go. Well, there's a lot of people involved in this, starting with Hef, who comes up with some ideas, and then he kind of shuttles them to me, and then I come up with even more ideas and go back to him, and the two of us get together like two little kids and see how much we can do to make people scared. Hugh Hefner and his family used to come to my house on Halloween where some 7,000 people show up, and they saw all these decorations and this collection that I had. And he started to say to me, well, can you bring some of this stuff to the mansion? And I would say to him, well, it's either here for Halloween or it's on tour around the country. But if I ever get a year when I'm not gonna do that, I'd be happy to. So one year the collection was free, I went to him and said, do you want to do a party? And he said, yeah, let's make it a really big one. And let's make it like the best Halloween party that anyone's ever had. And I said, I'm glad to be a part of it. It just gets bigger and crazier.
And weirder, freakier.
Well, I think the thing that he likes the best is that we put on a haunted house that would scare everybody, whether or not you know about movies. But the fact that we bring movie artifacts in and stuff from the old days, and we're very interested in silent film horror and early talkie horror all the way through the 50s sci-fi era that goes into the special effects era of the 70s and all the way up to the computer-generated effects of the 90s and beyond. I think he loves that mix, and he loves the fact that it's all film related because he's a huge film fan himself. And by the way, he's very, very good as a film fan at identifying and knowing what all this stuff is. So we bring up stuff that I think he likes to see, and I think he likes his friends to share that enthusiasm with him. And then there's a whole group of people who are involved in this. There's casting people, there's makeup people, there's wardrobe people, a lot of special effects people. There's construction coordinators and guys that take care of specific things all the way down to food and parking. But we also deal with a company out of Columbus, Ohio called the Scare Factory. These guys are special effects guys who specialize in making pneumatic effects for haunted attractions and haunted houses around the country. And now they've gotten into the film business, they've gotten into the special effects business, they've gotten into the makeup prosthetic business. They're really our right hand putting this party on, because I dream up all these crazy things and then the Scare Factory can kind of pull them off. But it's a real unique company to be able to do that. I don't know anyone who rivals them, including people in Hollywood, that can do the kind of stuff they do. Not only build the stuff, but to really scare everybody.
Hey, this Scare Factory is my kind of place. Maybe I can get him to redecorate my torture chamber.
We got into Playboy a few years back when an individual by the name of Richard Carell approached me and said, hey, I have this neighbor, and his name happens to be Hugh Hefner, and he puts on this big Halloween party, and I put it on for him. Would you guys be interested in helping? And I thought for about a second, and I said, we would absolutely love to do that.
Hey, where's the Scare Factory guy? Somebody know how to work this thing?
The return's a little hot, so going out is okay. Coming down, when I let go, you're gonna isolate that one.
The Playboy party's tough. I mean, those people that attend that party have seen everything. The lifestyle, the movies, the special effects, they're very difficult people to impress because they've seen it all. So every year, Rich and all his